So we're just going to do a short video on appliances and strapping, and the first one we're going to talk about is silicon devices. So when you're creating a silicon device, first you'll need obviously some silicon and some hardener. I normally recommend making the silicon about 2 or 3 millimeters in thickness and adding just enough catalyst or hardener to go along roughly about 1/4 of the oval shape that you make. Then you can begin kneading the silicon and mixing the catalyst hardener into the silicon evenly to ensure that you don't get any marbling. This takes a little bit of practice, so I'd recommend spending a bit of time using silicon to try and improve your kneading technique. If you don't mix the hardener in evenly and you get swirling, then generally you'll end up with areas that are soft and other areas that are hard, and this will generally cause the silicon device to become more fragile. You can then begin shaping the device so that it's going to go, in this case, between the toes. First of all, I tend to wrap it just underneath the second toe to provide a little hook underneath the toe, and then you'll notice that there's a thicker amount on the top which I can then remove and smooth out to get it to the right thickness between the toes. You may end up with a different technique, but this is the way that I tend to do it when I'm creating silicon wedges. You'll notice that I'm squeezing the forefoot to plantar flex the toes to replicate how the foot would sit inside the shoe. Otherwise the toes may end up being elevated more than usual when the silicon device is set. Then when the silicon device is set, you can take it out and just check to make sure that there aren't any abnormalities with the device. You may need to adjust the device, and there are several methods for adjusting. You can use a scalpel or nippers, you can use a burr, or you can actually adjust them on an orthotic grinder. So I'm just showing you here how to adjust a silicon device on an orthotic grinder. You just gently rub the silicon device over the normal sanding drum, and you can see you can thin out the top or sides, whatever you like to do, just to make the device a bit more compliant or fit better with the patient. We're now going to talk about making a plantar cover out of felt. These are the angles I tend to consider, which is the parabola of the metatarsal heads, looking at the base also where the stylo process is, and then I trim the pad. Usually I eyeball this, but because I've practiced quite a lot, I've managed to be able to replicate the parabola of the metatarsals fairly consistently. You'll notice in this case that it's too wide medially, so we need to do a little bit more trimming. And then once that's done, I will then progress to beveling the outside with a single bevel. Some people may advocate double beveling, but I would generally single bevel around the edges just so there's not an obvious step down on the edge of the felt. And then when you get to the base of the plantar cover, I would generally do a double bevel, so we've got 2 levels of beveling just to smooth that transition from the heel to the forefoot. So once that's done, we can peel off the back of the felt. You can see that the plantar cover should go right up to the web spaces. Now we're going to talk about how to make a felt prop. To begin with, take your felt and just estimate how wide those 3 middle toes are, and then cut out a rectangle. You can then take that rectangle, fold it in half, and just compare it to ensure that it is the correct width for those toes. In this case, it's fractionally too wide, so we're going to narrow it down. The next thing is we need to look at the parabola of the toes, because obviously they're not all the same length, and I'm going to angle the felt prop so that we get even length across each of those toes. Then I'm going to take some size 00 tube gauze. You can use size 1. I remove half of the backing of the felt, not the entire amount, and adhere one section of the tube gauze to one side. It then loops around the toes, and we can then apply the second part of the tube gauze, remove the backing, and then fold over the bottom half of the felt pad, and then we've done. I'm now going to demonstrate Lodi taping. It's worth noting that there is no universal method for Lodi taping, so there are a couple of methods demonstrated on your sheet, and I'm just going to show you one of those, which is the most common technique and probably easiest to do. So we're going to be looking at one way of doing Lodi taping. There are several methods for doing Lodi taping and no universally accepted method for Lodi taping. So in this particular case, Jacob has applied some leucoplast tape. This is, in this case, 5 centimeter rigid leucoplast tape, but it can be done with 2.5 centimeter taping, and you'll see a couple of versions in your appliances assessment. The first strap goes from lateral to medial, and you'll see that it ends just proximal to the MTPJs. Now Jacob is applying a strap from lateral to medial, again just proximal to the MTPJs. You'll notice that Jacob is very careful about not having too many creases in the strapping to improve comfort. Then he's applying a second strap, and then finally a third strap to support through the medial arch. So now we're going to be covering masking options for applying salicylic acid to Verruca. Here is option 1, which uses sports tape, opsite and hyperfix. Here are the items you will need to complete this type of masking around a Verruca, which includes using 2 pieces of opsite, some scissors, a scalpel handle, sports tape and hyperfix, and of course you will also need some salicylic acid. In this case you'll be using moisturizer as a replacement for salicylic acid. In this case we're going to imagine our patient here has a wart under their first MTPJ. First you're going to debride the wart to ensure that we get good penetration of the salicylic acid into the lesion. Once this is removed, we then take our first piece of opsite, which we'll use to mask the skin around the wart. A small little V or circle is cut into the center, and this will mask around the edges. Read the packet carefully just to know which tab to take off first. You then apply the opsite to the skin, remove the second tab, and then finally you will have a thin piece of plastic which needs to be removed from the opsite. This can be done quite slowly to ensure the opsite doesn't tear and doesn't come away from the skin. Now the opsite is not particularly thick and strong, so we're going to apply some sports tape over the op site just to protect it a little bit further. Getting as close to the lesion as possible with sports tape. Then a small amount of acid is applied to the lesion, and then a further piece of op site is used to cover that and seal the acid onto the actual lesion. Finally, we're going to take a piece of Fixamol, and this will cover the last piece of op site, which helps to protect the op site from abrasion. And there you have option 1 completed. Option 2 is a slightly simpler version, and this involves Fixamol, acid, and another layer of Newport. So for this application you will need a scalpel handle, Hyperfix, and Newport. So we apply the Hyperfix with the small hole around the lesion, apply acid, cover with Newport, and then finally a full covering of Hyperfix again to protect the Newport. Now, if you are interested, there are a variety of compounded treatments that you can have made up at the pharmacy. So you can provide a guide or request to the pharmacist to have a specific salicylic acid preparation made. And the most common one that you will see in the literature is salicylic acid 40 to 60% concentration in a base of petrolatum, which, other words, is Vaseline or petroleum jelly. Now, there are another range of other compounded acids and treatments, and you'll quite often see salicylic acid combined with lactic acid in a collodion form. That's 40% sal acid and 20% lactic acid. Then there's also something called 5-fluorouracil, which is actually something called an anti-metabolite, used virtually like a anti-cancer treatment. So it's actually a type of chemotherapy, this, but it's applied topically and combined with salicylic acid again to help improve its penetration into the skin. And this helps to stop the division of the viral infected cells. In addition, you can also get salicylic acid combined with urea. Urea you'll be familiar with because it's often used in moisturizers. And then there is also something called cantharidin or cantharone combined with salicylic acid. Now, you cannot have this compounded at the pharmacy, but it can be imported, especially from Canada. Now, you may come across this in your other lectures, but it is quite a useful preparation for treating warts that are stubborn and not responding to other treatments. So hopefully this is a useful guide for you. Thank you for your time, and hopefully you found this useful.